The question is that the motion be agreed to, and I give the call to the member for Goldstein.
Well, I thank you, Deputy Speaker, and it's a great privilege to be able to speak on this important motion celebrating the bicentenary of Catholic education in Australia. And I, in the Goldstein electorate, like members across the chamber, I'm sure, have many Catholic schools that are immensely proud of their contribution as part of the enrichment and well-being of the education of the next generation of Australians. I personally did not go to a Catholic school. My husband did and was educated all the way through, including in tertiary education at the Australian Catholic University. But it is the proud tradition and stewardship of young minds and creating opportunities and driving a sense of social justice through empowerment that we should celebrate in the Catholic tradition, because that is what so many Australians look for in their education system. Yes, it is obviously to educate the next generation of minds, but it is to ensure that they are embodied and educated in a fullness and a richness in values and, in some cases, a spiritual tradition which reflects their values. And that goes to the heart of our, being Liberals, approach to education. We have always believed in education choice, not just because we believe in things like competition and what it can do to improve and lift standards so that kids get a better outcome, though that is also true. It's because we respect the right of choice of parents to be able to make decisions to educate their children in their religious and cultural traditions and religious traditions that reflect their aspirations and their hopes. And we should be immensely proud of the role that the Catholic education system has played in that story, because the story of our nation and how it was built. The first Catholic school in Australia was founded in October 1820 by Irish Catholic priest John Terry, the school which Catholic historians believe was in Hunter Street, Parramatta, and taught 31 students. And it's from these foundations the Catholic education system has grown to the second biggest provider of schools-based education after government schools. And of course, it's not just the Liberals' support for the Catholic education system, though it's been consistent around all that time around freedom of choice, but Liberals have been central to universal education as part of the story of the history of our country as well. And of course, that was most seminal in the second half of the 20th century, where it became a great contest of ideas between the different sides, not just of this chamber, but around attitudes between freedom, choice and responsibility in the Liberal tradition and conformity imposed under the socialist tradition. And it was actually one of the big fights that the Menzies government had, which introduced limited federal funding for non-government schools through the passing of the State Grants Act, which provided grants for science laboratories and equipment to both government and non-government secondary schools without discrimination. This, of course, led to a basis in which many of those who wanted conformity within our society found it very difficult because they thought it was an attack on government schools. But we have always been believers in lifting all boats and giving people more choice. That is the very definition of empowerment from the Liberal tradition, something we're immensely proud of. We know that that became something that our political opponents opposed. We're very proud of that tradition. We continue to be proud of it, and we will continue to be proud of it into the future. And of course, Commonwealth funding of Catholic schools began formally from 1970 under the Gordon and McMahon governments, and in 1973 we saw a needs-based model for non-government schools introduced by the Whitlam government because they saw, through harsh lessons of history, the role it can play. But today we're very proud to continue our support for Catholic education. In the Goldstein electorate we have many schools, including Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, with its principal Anne O'Loughlin, and the chair of the board, and I understand these are from last year, Sandra Diafis, Sacred Heart School, which principal is Erin McDonald, St Agnes School, which is Principal Lachlan Foote, and chair of the board Miles Whelan, St Finbar's, Principal Pat Berlingri, and the chair of the board Kate McKenzie, St James's, with its principal Brendan Flanagan, and chair of board Father Martin Dixon, St Joan of Arc School Principal Tony McMahon and Chair of Board David Murray, St Joseph's School Liam Buckley and the Chair of the Board Mrs Melanie Layden, St Kevin's the Principal Mr Nigel Rodriguez, St Mary's School Principal Mr Matthew Sweeney and Chair of the Board Paula Cunniff, St Paul's School Principal Ms Catherine Tamas-Ild and Chair of the Board Megan Spears, Star of the Sea College Principal Mrs Mary O'Connor and Chair of the Board Ms Lisa Dwyer, Stella Maris with its principal, Mr Evan Frederick, and Xavier College Cosca Hall, which of course is in its sunset. The head of the campus, Kathleen Upfold, and the chair of the board, Mr Tony Noonan, we thank you for your service.